we've identified high grade. We've kind of put all our other projects and things aside. We're now going to begin to develop that high grade. We should have, you know, shipments to the mill. I don't know, within 2 or 3 weeks here. We'll continue to develop that.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. Joining me now is Jared Laserson. He is the CEO of North Bay Resources. And Jared, great to see you again. How are you?
Good to see you, Steve.
So exciting news out of the company today. More assays released today. Again, high grade. Pretty happy with what you've seen so far?
Yeah, excellent. We knew this zone was there. We'd sampled in 2024 last summer. We were up on site for a couple of weeks last month. Did a bunch of things, but yeah, reestablished what is a high grade zone. There had been, multi-ounce assays in that area, but we found in particular, massive sulfide outcrop right between the B and the C trench, which, like I said, had been previously assayed in the 1 ounce area. And this is just a large outcrop that we're going to focus on. And then we'd already delineated, but we reestablished really the test mining zone, kind of the bulk sample zone, which is about 15,000 tons, relatively shallow depth. It may go deeper, but we're not going to get to that at this point. But it gives us really a test mining zone, and test mining is it's not small as in an exploration level test. When we say test mining, this is a small version of actual mining, not we're now moving into the bulk sample and really getting narrowing down our eyes on development and starting to put our heads together on actually putting in a full mining permit, and eventually even looking at putting a mill on site. But that requires a lot more permitting, environmental, and so forth. Just beginning to extract ore in a small open pit, that's fairly straightforward and not complicated in terms of permitting or otherwise.
Yeah. And you talk about in the news release that you really want to sort of get working on this dual track development strategy. Maybe you can sort of explain that a bit so people understand.
Sure. Well, that's actually kind of the second piece of what I was saying. So there's the primary oxide zone, high grade, at surface. We have the 100-ton per day mill that, ideally, and what we've seen in the last little while, ideally, we are shipping high grade there, obviously, for profitability. So we've identified high grade. We've kind of put all our other projects and things aside. We're now going to begin to develop that high grade. We should have, shipments to the mill. I don't know, within 2 or 3 weeks here. We'll continue to develop that, but we did a internal resource estimate very recently, and that represents about 350,000 ounces in the main zone, and then with the east zone, we're at just shy of 500,000 ounces. So at that point, we need to kind of focus on how that will be developed. So yeah, it's really a dual path, but they do kind of come together once you physically get on the ground. So as we begin to develop, we just have a lot more information about how that open pit mine would start. And then obviously the key piece with that again is not just the open pit mining design. There's been 104 holes drilled. We'll drill a little more to delineate things and deal with the pit shell and geotechnical, but really that piece becomes about building a mill, because that's a low grade mass tonnage deposit, and there are two very large mines right nearby of very similar grade. So we have a lot of confidence in the economics at an early phase, which is kind of always the next step is can it make money, can it operate long term. And clearly, with where the price of gold is now, there's not really a big issue. Blackwater has stated that they're processing at $9 per ton. At a half ounce, that's a $50 half gram, sorry, per ton. On the bulk tonnage, that's $50 per ton at 0.3 even grams, which is used to be a very low number. You're still at over $30 a ton against a nearby mine comp, at $9 a ton processed, Obviously,
Yeah.
it's time to put sharpen the pencils and get this to the engineers and start to figure out a way to put this in production. The last piece is it's a no mining area. We're basically contiguous to Mount Milligan, which is uh, at the time in 2014, it was a $24 billion project, probably now north of 30 with the price of gold. So it's a well-established mining area. Blackwater just opened in January, which is a 10 million ounce deposit. So yeah, I mean it's a dual path, but cash flow, staying away from the dilution and the exploration model, generating our own money through the development of the oxide zone, and using that to fund or support our market cap and any financing, but potentially to fund the really what would be eventually pre-feasibility study for the larger mine, and then move to construction.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Jared, thanks so much. Good to see you again, and we'll talk soon.
Great, thanks, Steve.
All right, Jared Laserson, the CEO of North Bay Resources.